Today, the American story grows quieter, for voices that once shaped screens, stages, melodies, and childhood memories have fallen silent. Their lives unfolded across decades of change, laughter, creativity, and cultural transformation. From film sets to recording studios, from animated worlds to timeless performances, these legends gave shape to how millions felt, dreamed, and remembered. Their passing is not just the loss of individuals, but the closing of chapters in a shared, national memory. In moments like this, time seems to pause, inviting reflection, gratitude, and remembrance. Tonight, we honor four American legends whose work outlived them, whose influence still echoes, and whose stories deserve to be told. Slowly, gently, and with reverence. Tragic news was confirmed in the quiet hours of December, as the life of a familiar American voice came to a close dot in a private setting. Surrounded by the echoes of a long and meaningful career, Robert Norman Reiner passed away in December 2025. The news moved slowly at first, then spread across newsrooms, social media, and living rooms where his work had once played. For many, it felt like losing a storyteller who had always been there, shaping laughter, debate, and reflection for more than 5 decades. Robert Reiner's journey began long before fame found him. Born into a household shaped by performance and humor, storytelling was not just an interest, but a language spoken daily from an early age. He understood timing, tone, and the power of words. These early lessons would later become the foundation of a career that helped define modern American entertainment. His first national breakthrough came in the early 1970s, when television was beginning to mirror real social tensions. Cast as Mike Meathead Stivic on All in the Family, Reiner stepped into a role that challenged audiences. The character was outspoken, flawed, and deeply human. Through him, living rooms across America confronted issues of politics, family, and generational change week after week. Viewers watched arguments unfold at a dinner table that felt familiar. Reiner's performance was sharp but grounded. He brought humor without cruelty and conviction without arrogance. The role earned him critical praise and multiple awards. But more importantly, it made him part of the national conversation. As television evolved, so did Reiner. Rather than remain comfortable in one identity, he stepped behind the camera. This move marked the beginning of a second act that would leave an even deeper mark. As a director and producer, he proved that stories could be entertaining and thoughtful at the same time. Over the years, he guided films that blended heart, humor, and honesty. His work explored love, friendship, ambition, and fear, often through simple moments that stayed with audiences long after the screen went dark. He believed that comedy worked best when it revealed truth, and that drama mattered most when it felt real. Colleagues often described him as a steady presence on set. He listened more than he spoke. He trusted actors. He believed stories should serve people, not the other way around. One longtime collaborator shared, Bob never raised his voice. He let the story do the work. Beyond film and television, Reiner became known for his strong political voice. He did not separate art from belief. Instead, he used his platform to speak openly about justice, democracy, and civic responsibility, whether admired or debated. His commitment to speaking out never wavered. In interviews, Reiner often said silence was not an option. He believed that public figures carried responsibility, especially in times of division. If you have a voice, he once said, you should use it to protect what matters. That belief guided him well into his later years. As news of his passing became public, tributes began to appear across generations. Actors, directors, writers, and fans shared memories of how his work had shaped them. One filmmaker wrote online, Robert Reiner taught us that stories can be funny and brave at the same time. Fans remembered quieter moments, a film watched with parents, a sitcom episode replayed late at night, a line of dialogue that still felt relevant decades later. These were not just memories of entertainment, but of connection. His family confirmed that Reiner passed peacefully. They asked for privacy, while also expressing gratitude for the outpouring of love. In a brief statement, a family member shared, he believed deeply in kindness, curiosity, and standing up for others. We will carry that forward. In the mid-body of his career, Reiner remained active, curious, and engaged. He continued to mentor younger artists. He attended discussions, panels, and events not for attention, but for conversation. He wanted to understand how storytelling was changing, and how it could still matter. Those who worked with him later in life noticed the same traits that marked his early years. He was prepared, he was thoughtful, he was generous with credit. One young writer recalled, he treated me like my ideas mattered. That stays with you forever. As time passed, Reiner became less of a headline and more of a foundation. His influence was felt even when his name was not spoken. The structure of modern comedy, the courage of political storytelling, and the blending of humor with sincerity all carried his fingerprints. When the final news broke, it did not come with spectacle. There were no dramatic announcements, no sudden revelations, just a quiet acknowledgement that a long chapter had ended. And perhaps that suited him best. Robert Reiner lived a life built on words, images, and belief. He trusted audiences to think, he trusted stories to lead, and he trusted that honesty would always find its way home. In remembering him, America remembers more than a performer or director. It remembers a mirror held up to society, sometimes gently, sometimes firmly, but always with care. His work invited people to laugh, argue, and reflect, often all at once. Though his voice has now fallen silent, the stories remain. They play on screens, in classrooms, and in conversations passed from one generation to the next. His legacy is not frozen in time. It continues to move, question, and inspire. Robert Reiner will be remembered as a storyteller who framed a generation, not by telling them what to think, but by reminding them to feel, to question, and to listen. And in that quiet space between laughter and truth, his memory lives on. The news arrived quietly, carried on the morning air, confirming a loss that would soon echo far beyond the music world. In the early days of December 2025, word spread that Raul Malo had passed away. The announcement came without spectacle, but the weight of it was immediate. For many, it felt like a familiar sound had suddenly gone missing. A voice that once crossed borders and blended cultures had fallen silent. Raul Malo died on December 8, 2025, leaving behind a life shaped by melody, emotion, and deep honesty. His passing marked the end of a journey that helped redefine American roots music. It also marked a moment of pause for fans who had followed his voice through decades of change. Born Raul Francisco Martinez Malo Jr., his story began far from the big stages he would later command. Music entered his life early, not as a goal, but as a natural language. He grew up surrounded by different sounds: country, Latin rhythm, rock, and soul all shared space in his world. That mix would become his signature. From the beginning, Malo did not fit neatly into one genre. His voice carried warmth and longing. It could sound smooth and steady one moment, then rise with raw emotion the next. Even early on, those who heard him understood that this was not a voice meant to be boxed in. That understanding found its home with the Mavericks. As the lead singer and heart of the band, Malo helped shape a sound that felt both familiar and new. The Mavericks blended country tradition with Latin influence and rock energy. The result was music that felt timeless, yet fresh on stage. Malo commanded attention without demanding it. He did not rush, he let notes breathe. He trusted silence as much as sound. Audiences felt that patience, and they leaned in closer because of it. Songs became stories. Throughout the 1990s and beyond, the Mavericks gained a devoted following. Their music reached listeners who may not have shared the same background, but who felt the same emotions. Love, loss, joy, and regret all lived in Malo's voice. Critics often tried to label the band country Americana, Latin rock. Malo never seemed concerned. He believed music should feel honest before it felt defined. In interviews, he spoke more about feeling than category. One fan wrote years ago, "When Raul sings, it feels like he's telling your story, even if he's never met you." That connection became his quiet strength. As time passed, Malo continued to explore. He released solo work that leaned deeper into emotion and reflection. These songs felt personal, sometimes almost fragile, but they were never small. They carried the same truth that had always guided him. Those who worked with Malo often spoke of his humility. Despite success, he remained grounded. He arrived prepared. He listened carefully. He treated fellow musicians with respect, whether they were seasoned professionals or just starting out. A longtime bandmate once shared, "Raul never tried to be bigger than the song. He served it. That's why people trusted him." It was a simple statement, but one that captured his approach. In the mid-body of his career, Malo became known not just for his voice, but for his consistency. He did not chase trends. He did not adjust his sound to fit the moment. Instead, he allowed his work to mature naturally. Just as he did. Fans aged alongside him. Songs that once felt hopeful began to feel reflective. Lyrics took on new meaning. The music did not grow older. It grew deeper. When news of his death became public, tributes began to appear almost immediately. Musicians shared stories from the road. Fans posted clips from concerts that still felt alive through phone screens. One fellow artist wrote online, "Raul Malo had one of the most honest voices in American music. He didn't just sing songs, he carried them." The message was shared thousands of times. Family members later confirmed the loss and thanked supporters for their kindness. In a brief statement, they said Malo was grateful for the life he lived and the music he was able to share. He believed in singing from the heart. The statement read, And he did that until the very end. In the days that followed, radio stations played his music with new attention. Listeners heard familiar songs differently now. Notes lingered longer, lyrics landed softer. The absence gave them new weight, yet even in loss, there was comfort. Malo's voice remains recorded. Preserved in time, it still rises from speakers and stages. It still carries the same calm strength and emotional pull. That is the quiet gift he left behind. Music historians often speak of artists who bridge worlds. Malo did that without force. He did it by being himself, by honoring where he came from, by welcoming where the music wanted to go. He proved that American music could be wide enough to hold many stories at once. As the industry continues to change, Raul Malo's work stands as a reminder that truth matters, that feeling matters, that a single voice, when honest enough, can cross any line drawn on a map. In remembering him, fans remember moments: a late-night drive with the radio low, a concert where the crowd fell silent just to listen, a song that helped explain something words alone could not. Those moments are now part of his legacy. Raul Malo will be remembered not just as the soul of the Mavericks, but as a voice that blended heart and horizon, a voice that made room for everyone who listened. And though he is gone, the sound he gave the world continues to travel, steady and warm, long after the final note fades. The confirmation came quietly, like a pause between levels, signaling that a familiar voice would not return. In December 2025, news spread that James Kevin Ward had passed away on December 10. At the age of 66, the announcement moved through gaming circles first, then outward, reaching fans who grew up hearing his voice without always knowing his name. For many, the loss felt personal. A piece of childhood had gone silent. James Kevin Ward was not a face seen on screens, but a presence deeply felt. His work lived inside characters, inside moments of laughter, triumph, and failure. He gave sound to pixels and turned animated figures into personalities that felt real. His most famous role came as Captain Quark in the Ratchet and Clank series. Loud, boastful, insecure, and strangely lovable, the character became unforgettable largely because of Ward's performance. He understood comedy, but he also understood vulnerability. That balance made Quark more than a joke. It made him human. Ward's voice carried confidence, then cracked it open with humor. He knew when to push a line and when to pull back. Players laughed at Quark, but they also remembered him. That kind of connection does not happen by accident. Before the spotlight of major gaming titles, Ward worked steadily in voice acting, learning the craft from the ground up. He studied timing, he studied character, he treated voice work not as a shortcut, but as a full performance. Those who worked with him said he prepared as carefully as any stage actor. He believed the voice had weight. As gaming grew into a cultural force, Ward's work grew with it. He understood that games were not just play, but storytelling. His characters reacted, changed, and failed. They felt alive. That approach helped shape how players connected emotionally to games during a formative time in the industry. Developers often praised his flexibility. He could deliver big energy one moment, then slip into subtle humor the next. A producer once said, James could make a simple line feel like a memory. That skill set him apart. In the mid-body of his career, Ward became a steady presence. Behind the scenes, he mentored younger voice actors. He shared advice without ego. He reminded newcomers that even animated characters deserved care and respect. One fellow actor later recalled, James told me to imagine who the character was when no one was watching. That changed how I worked. It was a quiet lesson, but a lasting one outside the booth. Ward was known as thoughtful and kind. He did not chase attention. He focused on the work. Friends described him as someone who listened more than he spoke, and laughed easily when he did. As years passed, his voice became woven into the background of many lives. Players heard him during long nights, weekend marathons, and shared moments with friends. For some, those memories became tied to comfort and escape. When news of his passing became public, tributes appeared across social media. Fans shared clips, quotes, and personal stories. One longtime player wrote, Captain Quark was part of my childhood. James Kevin Ward gave us laughter when we needed it most. Another post read, he didn't just voice a character, he gave him a soul. The words were simple, but they carried truth. Ward's family confirmed his death and thanked fans for their support in a brief message. They said he was proud of his work and grateful for the joy it brought others. He loved knowing his voice made people smile. The statement said. The gaming community responded with moments of silence, tribute videos, and in-game nods. Developers acknowledged his impact not only on their projects, but on the medium as a whole. His performances had helped define what voice acting in games could be. Even those who did not know his name recognized his sound. That is a quiet power of voice work. It becomes part of memory without demanding credit. Ward understood that He embraced it. As technology advanced and games became more complex, his earlier work remained relevant. New players discovered old titles and heard his voice for the first time. The humor still landed. The timing still worked, the characters still felt alive. That staying power is rare. James Kevin Ward's legacy lives in moments of joy, in laughter that came unexpectedly, in characters that felt bigger than the screen. He helped prove that games could carry heart, and that voices could carry meaning. Though he is gone, his work continues to play on. It echoes through consoles, remasters, and memories shared between generations. His voice remains part of the language of gaming. James Kevin Ward will be remembered as the voice that turned pixels into personality, a performer who gave life to worlds unseen, and joy to millions who listened. And in every familiar line replayed, his presence remains, steady and warm, never truly fading. The confirmation came softly, like the end of a cartoon episode when the screen fades to quiet. On December 10, 2025, the life of Jeffrey Anthony Garcia came to an end. The news did not arrive with noise or spectacle. It moved gently, carried through messages, posts, and shared memories. For many who grew up with his voice, it felt like a small but meaningful piece of childhood had slipped away. Jeffrey Garcia was not a star in the traditional sense. He was something more personal. His work lived in laughter, imagination, and voices that felt like friends for millions of children. His characters were not just animated figures. They were companions during afternoons, weekends, and moments of escape. Born with a natural sense of energy and humor, Garcia discovered early that his voice could do more than speak. It could perform, it could stretch, bounce, and shine with emotion. What set him apart was not volume, but feeling. He knew how to sound excited without being loud and sincere without trying too hard. That gift found its most famous home in the character of Sheenace Davis. As Sheen, Garcia created a voice full of joy, chaos, and innocence. The character was loud, strange, and endlessly curious. But beneath the jokes was a warmth that children recognized instantly. Sheen felt real, because Garcia treated him as real. Each line carried movement, each laugh felt genuine. Viewers did not just watch Sheen, they listened to him, and in that voice they heard freedom, a freedom to be silly, to dream big, to ask strange questions. Garcia understood that children's characters needed heart as much as humor. That understanding guided his entire career. Beyond one role, Garcia brought life to many animated worlds. His voice appeared in shows and films that became part of daily routine for young audiences: morning cartoons, after-school reruns, weekend marathons. His performances blended into the rhythm of growing up. He had a way of making characters feel safe. Those who worked with Garcia often spoke of his professionalism. In the recording booth, he arrived prepared and focused. He respected the process. He treated voice acting as real acting, even when the character was playful or exaggerated. A director once shared, Jeffrey never talked down to kids. He believed they deserved honesty. That belief shaped every performance. In the mid-body of his career, Garcia became a steady voice in animation. He did not chase fame, he followed passion. He continued to work because he loved the craft, and because he knew his voice mattered to someone, somewhere. He also understood responsibility. Garcia often spoke about the influence animated characters have on children. He believed voices could shape mood, confidence, and imagination. That awareness made him careful, but never cautious. He gave energy freely, knowing joy was worth sharing. As years passed, fans who had grown up with his work began to speak up. Online posts appeared from adults remembering how his characters made them laugh when they felt lonely, or how his voice became part of family routines. One fan wrote, Jeffrey Garcia's voice felt like happiness. It was always there when I needed a smile. The message echoed across platforms. Another tribute read, he made childhood louder, brighter, and kinder. Simple words, but deeply felt. Garcia's family confirmed his passing and thanked the public for their kindness. In a short statement, they said he was grateful for the love his work received. He loved knowing his voice brought joy. They shared, that meant everything to him. The animation community responded with quiet respect. Fellow voice actors shared memories of studio sessions and laughter between takes. Many described Garcia as generous with encouragement and quick to celebrate others. One colleague wrote, Jeffrey had a laugh you could hear through the walls and a heart just as big. It was a memory repeated often. In the days following the news, clips of his work began to circulate again. Parents played episodes for their children. Adults revisited old shows. The laughter returned, even through tears. That is the power of his legacy. Garcia's voice does not belong to one time. It moves freely across generations. Children who never knew his name still know his sound, and those who do know his name speak it with gratitude. Animation often fades quietly into the background of life, but voices remain. They settle into memory. They become part of how people remember feeling young, safe, and curious. Jeffrey Garcia understood that role. He honored it. As technology changes and new characters arrive, his performances continue to live on. They play in reruns. They stream late at night. They find new audiences who laugh for the first time. That laughter matters. Jeffrey Garcia will be remembered as a sound of childhood wonder, a voice that carried imagination without limits, a performer who reminded the world that joy can be loud, gentle, and sincere all at once. As the final voice fades, what remains is gratitude. Gratitude for stories told, for worlds imagined, and for memories that will continue to live on long after the silence.